You are listening to the e-flux podcast.
The following episode was recorded live at e-flux on February 10th during the launch of e-flux Index number 8 and features a tribute to Dara Birnbaum by Piper Marshall.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hallie. I work here at e-flux. Very delighted to see you all this evening. We have a very special program. The program is on the occasion of the launch of issue number 8 of e-flux Index, which is my prop here. For those who don't know, e-flux Index is a quarterly publication that combines and recontextualizes everything that e-flux publishes online. But online, you may know that our publishing is commissioned via platform, and these platforms kind of follow typical disciplines like architecture or the journal, which is more like art theory, and then criticism, notes, which is more kind of experimental or short form, more immediate types of writing, and education. And the project of e-flux Index is to take all of this content from a specific 2 to 3 month period of our publishing and to draw out kind of strains throughout these different publishing platforms. So everything is recontextualized into thematic chapters that are an attempt to understand what the dominant strains of discourse are in arts publishing today. This issue, Index number 8, covers everything we published in April and May of this past year. That time span happened to coincide with the unfortunate loss of legendary pioneer of feminist video art, Dara Birnbaum. And so, as it so happens, a text, we republished a text by Dara talking back to the media, originally published in 1985, republished on Film Notes, e-flux Film Notes last May. And then we were fortunate to have a text written by Piper Marshall, a kind of memory of about Dara. So what we'll do tonight is we'll have Piper very graciously read her text that you can also find here, and then we'll watch a screening of Birnbaum's films, a few of, not all of them, of course, a few of them. And I should mention the index is available for purchase. Anyway, I will leave the introduction of Dara Birnbaum to Piper, who will say words more eloquent than I ever could, but I will give an introduction to Piper. Piper Marshall is an art historian, curator, and critic whose practice combines rigorous research with exhibition making. She leads innovative interdisciplinary work on modern and contemporary art with a focus on art and technology. She earned her PhD in the history of art and architecture from Columbia University and her bachelor's from Barnard College. And she's also curated hundreds or thousands of exhibitions, but we won't go into that now. Anyway, please join me in welcoming Piper. And again, thank you all for being here.
Hi. It's really nice to be with you in this very cold evening. So thanks for making it out. And I'm very happy to be able to read to you tonight. This is a text that I wrote in memory of Dara Birnbaum. I didn't know Dara Birnbaum well, but I knew some of her work personally. When I was a fellow at the Museum of Modern Art, every morning I checked her video for unwanted glitches for unsynced sound. Dara's Technology Transformation Wonder Woman held Gallery 201, the entrance to the contemporary collections. The flat screen suspended between two poles. Linda Carter appeared first, buttoned down as a secretary, then uncontained as a superhero, spinning, deflecting, and going elsewhere. Finally, Wonder Woman disco trilled from the speakers. The trawl of lyrics, blocked in yellow typeface, scrolled up the blue screen like a karaoke sing-along. Birnbaum had swiped the sound from the Wonderland disco band just at the point of its obsolescence. When the museum's AV team pumped up the sound, the falsetto of D.D. Denard really dragged out the vowels, relaxing sounds from syllables, releasing and reiterating breath, a life within death rattle which traveled into and stirred the air of the surrounding galleries. It drew us into a loop of unrelenting, over-the-top, exasperated sighs that both entice and overwhelm the ear. Like Dan Graham, her collaborator, Birnbaum was one of the art world's conductors of popular music, a facet of her work still somewhat unexamined. I would write about her campy coded soundtracks and her remediation of the film edit in my scholarly work. Both strategies had sparked a debate about the allegorical maneuvers claimed for the artists of her time. Later on, when I met Dara at an art world dinner in the Hudson Valley, she gave a toast that seemed to match her video's strange cadence and extended indeterminacy. Her position was at once aloof and personal, sober and jocular, grounded by an excessively dour wit. To this day, I remain uncertain whether she was dryly jesting or sincerely earnest. Either way, at times, she could really present as prickly, launching a barb before administering the balm of her grin. Less than a year later, back at MoMA, with Stuart Comer and Michelle Kuo, Ericka Shimzu, and Yana Kim, I properly met Dara to discuss the exhibition of her 5-channel installation, Tiananmen Square Break in Transmission. The multi-screen work was given pride of place in the exhibition, Signals How Video Transformed the World, and it graced the cover of the show's catalog. When Birnbaum arrived at the museum to negotiate the presentation of her work, she conversed with every installer, every registrar, and every exhibition designer. Observing her slow and deliberate interactions provided another view onto a position that unrelentingly and recursively calibrated feedback. Her persistent, methodical approach was neither studied nor spontaneous, neither canned nor unsalted. Rather, it was guided by a decades-long practice of probing and penetrating the tightly controlled messages delivered through cold circuitry. For Birnbaum, however, the break in televisual communication was as troublesome as an endless hook. The former seemed to offer an immediate, intimate view, and the latter could veer toward bared and bored repetition. She'd explain, TV tried to let you think that you could be inside of it, engulfed by the image and the action and the activity, but what aspect of it? Since Birnbaum has been distinguished for surgically fragmenting the televisual image and undermining the perspectives that our screens train. Dara opposed the intimacy of television and the quality of attentiveness that media engenders, and she did so most notoriously with technology transformation Wonder Woman. This video has been exhibited as one of the foundational works of the pictures generation, yet I'm not persuaded that it registered as such at its first screenings. For one of the initial viewings, Birnbaum transferred the video to 16mm so it could be included within a film festival at the Kitchen, a detail not discussed as much as its installation on a single monitor for New Yorkers through the window of H.H. Hair Salon de Coiffure. Could you even hear it? Or its display on the multi-screen environment for revelers at the Palladium Dance Club, where you probably couldn't hear anything but it. With her use of disco, Dara transmitted a queer aesthetic, one that would have been fugitive when the work circulated in the late 1980s. This facet implies that one of her subjects was the force carried through intractable expressions. The refining of the picture's generation was 1979, the repackaging in 2009, and yet Birnbaum took up the structural logic used by its arbiters and injected the highbrow method with vagrant gulps and gasps. It isn't that she merely bootlegged cassettes, mimicked jump cuts, or flaunted stereotypes, but it was that she used these strategies to secrete a tide of queerness, a syntax that could not be governed by prudish academies, though the sound might at first have been written off, if not ignored, by more normative agents as sexist. Perhaps Dara was motivated by her time studying in San Francisco. It has been written that she worked with Lawrence Halprin architects and danced at Anna Halprin workshops. But the Bay Area is also where Hibiscus and Sylvester, members of the theater troupe The Coquettes, worked themselves into handcrafted costumes and fluidly morphed gender. They made an art of glamorous living by realizing glittered fantasies. They also ridiculed stereotypes by reperforming them on stage and possibly at home. They knew that the lowliest, basest of material could control you. It seems that Dara grabbed an aspect of their campy flamboyance and their tendency to reuse and imported such qualities into her work. She best served her audience by undermining the rules of written language with a sound that induces the heat and shimmer of desire and exhausts it, as phrased by the incandescent and theatrical moans. To that end, though Dara's work might have been initially framed as Brechtian, she was no student of Brecht. She never truly distantiated her viewership with this celebrated work or with others. Rather, she drew us into an alternative engagement. Her interests in kitsch, cultural material carries over to other works like Kiss the Girls, Make Them Cry. This video advances with hand claps that thump off beat just as the lens zooms in and out of the mugs of minor celebrities, like Melissa Gilbert of Little House on the Prairie, framed by Hollywood squares. Dara described these wavering stars as iconic women and receding men, captured in repetitive Baroque neck-snapping triple takes, guffaws, and paranoid eye darts. She clues us into the way she used popular culture to pull in her viewership and then pull apart perspective with sonic surplus. The audio certainly captivates the ear, and it generates an excess, one which peels away its source material from either side. The initial soundtrack moves into a slowed and synthed rendition of Georgie Porgy Pudding and Pie. Music, Birnbaum suggests, provided a model that sampled and remixed with irony, buoyancy, and drag to induce a threshold experience. Dara transmitted edgewise, overtly signaling a cut and wink within earshot and sight. The installations of Birnbaum that I find most difficult are the later clunky architectural interventions like Transmission Tower, Sentinel, or Hostage. It seems that here she turned to the minimal grid and then transmitted her data through its cubes, even though the monitors can present the picture offbeat, cascading the image across the squares in shifting patterns. Even though these motifs emulate the cadence of the early work, I always felt that she had hedged, that she relied too much on a phenomenological encounter with angular forms. Had she abandoned or had she perverted her dictate from the 1970s, new structures, new approaches? Or, perhaps, more generously, was she once again taking up the just past, this time the geometry of minimalism, and locking its logic into the look of control rooms and spacecrafts? She certainly confronted us with the scaffolding that privileges the messages of our uneven LinkedIn communities, the same framework that abstracts the lives that make the marks of our missiles. Dara's interventions are most productive when they inject fitful resistance into dialectics and surge the connections between satellite, broadcast, and nation. Perhaps it is this potential for her work to pirate that still fascinates me. Tiananmen Square break-in transmission is guided by powder-coated tubes that telescope from the ceiling, each like a parallel satellite transmission, she explained to us. The lines teeter LED screens at their ends, and these palm-sized displays invite us to crouch, squint, and connect. An adjacent wall monitor zaps between bootlegged tape of U.S. news, student protests in Beijing, and the public notice cutting satellite transmission once issued by the Chinese government. The notion here is that what you see is surveyed, only for that broadcast to be dramatically, aggressively interrupted. Dara commandeered the point of view of television, the break-in news, the direct address, the political messaging, and the temporal regress, and she primed us for our current conditions. Still, she had no patience for binaries, and she forensically included footage of the youthful power that fomented. She made sure to highlight footage of the students pushing out their messages with teletexts and fax machines, forming a syncopated solidarity through a Taiwanese music video. She knew that sorrows are sung with bodily beat to transform memory. The earworm inscribes as it moves us along. As Dara guided us to install this monument to persistence, she too endured, somewhat impoverished and in ill health, even as writers vaunted her into pioneer, an action which nominates her initial output at the sacrifice of her ongoing travails. This tendency fails her ideas and process, and it creates gaps, leaving her lesser-known output to the scholars who slowly and belatedly complicate our stories and fill in our collections. It makes me wonder about the way artists are able to sustain themselves, to hold conviction, as they are ossified into the symbols that bolster genre, silo discipline. But then, I also recall how Dara truly schooled us. The in-between, she admonished, is really the reality we need to live in. Thanks.